Welcome to the Parts and Labor Podcast, the podcast that explores the strategies, systems, and stories that drive salon success. I'm Alicia, founder and CEO of Salon Scale.
And I'm Whitney, head of sales here at Salon Scale.
And welcome to the Parts and Labor Podcast.
Welcome back to the Parts and Labor Podcast. I'm Whitney.
And I'm Alicia.
And it's definitely not the exact same day as the last time we filmed the podcast.
Not at all.
We just put on the exact same outfit.
It's our uniforms.
That's right. Anyway, today our topic is a bit about the stylist. So what we want to kind of touch on today is any stylist pushback. So about the pricing models or not charging for extrables, any kind of thing that can go wrong with the pricing structure, why that happens, and how to fix it.
Yes, I think that the biggest thing too is like when you embrace change in your business and you need these things, like your business is struggling financially and you make change and like you're like, yes, I know I need this. And then you look at the team and you're like, oh shit. How am I going to get all these people on board? And then you know who's going to probably sway one way or the other. And it feels like you have to do like a whole political campaign to get everyone on board. Yep. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Perfect. And funny enough, my boss has done that exact same thing to me today. You're curious. I was a problem. In the ship. So let's start. Where's a good place to even kind of start with this topic? Again, it's going to cover a bit of a wide range.
I think the big and best part to start is like, so you need some change in your business, right? Mm-hmm. You figure it out, like, especially like when we look at pricing in general, or we look at like the costs involved in doing your business, like you've identified that you have a problem, like something's not getting paid for because the cash is not in your business. Mm-hmm. You're feeling that way. And so now that you have this problem, like you're trying to find out a solution. So now, you might be leaning into like, maybe we're going to bring in the software to start tracking some product costs, or maybe we're bringing Salon Scale in. And so from that discussion or those kinds of conversation, it's like when you lean into having that conversation with the teams, that's where that pushback's going to come. That's where the like next conversation is like, how do I bring this in? Because in the past, I might have had one or two experiences where I'd have a certain one or two stylists that would really not like any change in the business. So they were very change resistant. Mm-hmm. So when you have a team and you have a few people that are change resistant, unfortunately, like that can multiply. Yeah. And so I think that's the big fear, is that you want to get buy-in from your whole team. And so buy-in really is going to come from the confidence you have on delivering the information. So really, really pulling yourself into like, why do I need this for the business? Mm-hmm. And so as a salon owner, it's important to kind of come back to that why so that you can properly communicate it with your teams. Like you have to be able to say, hey, you know what? I've done some, analysis on the business in the last quarter. We're just simply not covering our costs. And there's things in the business that are not getting paid for. And so the solution we are bringing forward is Salon Scale. What we're going to do is we're going to start tracking the costs and we're going to ensure that all the products are being paid for. How does that sound? So like throwing that conversation out is like that first kind of step. Then kind of facing those fears. Like what is the worst that's going to happen, right? Like you're going to have a few people that are going to be maybe a little bit more resistant, worry about what they're going to say or do to any of these changes. So if you have like one or two that like have more of that change resistance and have that negative impact on the team, or can lead them and influence them, that Whitney, if you're like a Whitney, talk to them directly first. Like, don't do the like, hey, everyone sit down. I'm going to just like dump this like news on you and like hope that like they take it well. Talk to those people and say like, I'm just going to let you know next staff meeting, I'm going to be talking about this. And I want to talk to you about this specifically because in the past, when I brought up some change in the business, you've, taken a little bit longer to kind of adopt it. And so I want to, talk to you about these kind of changes first so that we can get the whole team aligned.
You know what a boss said to me one time? He was bringing on something new and he pulled me aside and I had a lot of respect for him. I really liked him. And he said, I need you. He came to me first and he said, we're going to do this and I need you to be on board because he didn't say negative, like he didn't put any negative spin on it whatsoever. It actually made me feel really good. It was probably reverse psychology on his point. But he said, if you're not on board, the rest of the team's not going to be on board. So if you're excited about this, the rest of the team's going to be able to be excited. And giving somebody that opportunity to, and that kind of influence over the team, like it gives them, makes them feel like proud and like they don't want to let you down. So that was, and I will say, I think I've mentioned this before too, but that changed me for life. Now I will never, ever, ever be that way towards change. I still don't love change, but I will never have a negative attitude for it because I could see that the thought of like me being negative and giving this a hard time and getting the other like staff, like giving them a negative attitude about it too, was really stressing him out. And I didn't want to do that because I liked him. So putting that on the person and giving them that kind of empowerment and, I don't know, responsibility of helping the others get on board, that was a really, really smart way to do it. And like I said, it changed me forever. I will always, always give any change, like a fair shot now. And be like the loudest cheerleader about it, even if in my mind I'm like, I don't want to do it. I will give it a shot.
Yeah, I think it's important that like everybody, accepts change differently and like the way that they deliver the news. Like some people just don't want a whole group of people and like it's pretty direct in that way that like that's just not how they like to take it. But when it comes to change, like change needs momentum. Actually, change needs movement and movement needs momentum for it to be successful. So you can just announce change, but if there's no movement, then there will be no momentum to like what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So that's the second portion that like your former employer, not me. Maybe I've done that tactic on you in the past.
Probably. Now that you know, every single time I get pulled aside.
Right? You're like, you know what? You're going to be great today.
Yeah.
Here's the change we're going to do.
You're right.
But I think the big thing is like it's that first follower. So like who is the most influential in the salon? Like who is the one that they look up to? It's probably going to be, a senior staff member. It's going to be someone who's on the floor with them that's creating like all the things, has the full clientele, has like all the things they want. That's going to be the influence in your salon. So if they have influence and they're change resistant, you're never going to get impact. You're never going to get movement because you're essentially that first follower, that person that's going to, help make that change. They're not going to join the mission. They're not going to join it. And so like there was this amazing video that explains this right away of the first follower. If you actually like, you could probably YouTube it and look up like the first follower. You'll probably find the video. But essentially it's like this huge outdoor like festival. And this one person had the like courage to stand up and make change. So everyone was sitting there like listening to the music, but this person stood up and started dancing. And this person was like, I'm gonna start dancing. And everyone was just watching like, what is that person doing? Again, starting to make change. And nobody else started dancing, but they just watched. And it was almost like they sat back and judged, like, what is this? I'm not sure. So this is exactly what happens in your business, right? Like you're the owner that wants to make change. Like they're all staring at you. But what happened, which was interesting, is like the first follower. So the first follower that stood up and started dancing with that person created the movement. So as soon as like all of a sudden the first follower started dancing and they started dancing together, all of a sudden, it started to lighten up. And the whole audience like started, and then all of a sudden, another couple would come, another couple. All of a sudden, by the end of the video, the entire crowd is dancing. And so like it create that momentum in your business, or like to create the movement that you're trying to create, you have to create that like sequence of events. So who is the first follower? Who's the person that you need that buy-in to unlock the results that you're trying to have in your business? And like that, out of anything, is the most important thing to have in your salon, is to make sure that first follower, that person that's going to create that is on board. They see what's going on and they're going to help you, accomplish what you're trying to do.
This is a tangent, but I just thought of it as you said that on a wider scale. So that's, within the salon, but even on a wider scale, that's parts plus labor to me. Everyone wants to switch. Well, I don't know. Most people that I talk to want to switch with it. They just don't want to be the first one, And so there were those first adopters of parts plus labor. You were one of them. And when they see the success from it and they see the impact, then it becomes okay to, okay, this is a safe way to run the business. This is the outcome from it. This is setting myself up in a smart way. But it's scary to be the first one to stand up and do it. But once you have that kind of proof of success, then it makes it a lot easier for others to join in.
Oh, absolutely. I think like it's a lesson of life, you know. It's like who are you in this scenario? Like, are you the first one that has the courage to start? Are you, you know, do you have like the like unbothered desire to just be part of like whatever energies around you, be a first follower that like creates like inspiration and like, you know, the first steps of momentum? Or are you sitting back in the crowd and waiting? So like, you know, it's like the very last person that started dancing got the, you know, like they got the last version of it. Whereas these guys have been dancing for already the first half an hour, right? So like how long are you willing to wait out on like what is right in front of you? So like that's the thing I do notice too with parts and labor and talking to salons about a new financial model or pricing or having conversations is like we look at the crowd. So like if you're that first change maker in your business, like you had to make the business and you need to find that person to help you, you know, make the change. But you're looking at the audience of them all sitting there staring. Like if you put your focus there, like you will stay stalled. You wouldn't even get up. You won't even get up. You won't start dancing. You will become an audience member. So like, are you going to be an audience member in your own business or do you want to make change in your business? That's essentially what this is all about.
That's so true. And I want to go back to the stylist a little bit. So, you know, mentioning bringing something on board, kind of a good way to go about that. You know, find the ones that are going to be a little sticky, a little bit hesitant, and come to them first. But even before, let's take it back to even before like bringing salons on, back to when you notice as a salon owner that there's a missing piece like in the business, that you're losing profit somewhere. You probably know it's in the back bar. You might think it's waste. Why can you set up, you know, in your mind, and maybe you can Google, you can use ChatGPT, you can ask other salon owners, you can find this perfect financial model that was Midwestern financial model that should work, you know, that, you know, you can plug everything in and X will equal this amount of profit at the end. But at some point it fails. And a lot of that, again, happens in the back bar, that leak for you. So why do we think that when it should work, it doesn't? Does that come down to the stylist?
I think it honestly comes to the like conversation of like us versus them. And I think it comes down to like, there are two perspectives here. There's stylists that work in a business and their like goals, hopes, dreams are completely different than yours as a salon. You're trying to get a profitable business. You're trying to grow this thing, whereas they're trying to grow their own wealth, right? Like it's like two things are trying to align. And, you know, I think that it becomes that kind of uncomfortable, you know, like how do you get that alignment? Like how do you have that conversation to make sure that like that they find like a happiness and a success to this too. So like the most important thing is to kind of like think in their perspective. And guess what? You were probably a stylist not too long ago before you opened a salon. So like think in their lens, you know. Now you're bringing in a technology, you're bringing in this thing that's going to like, they have to like slow down and mix a little bit more and use technology to like, they might feel like it might be a weapon used against them. And now they're being tracked and now they're customers, like the clientele that I built is now you're going to leverage, you're going to make more money off my clients. Like it becomes a very like me versus you or us versus them. And so like the most important thing is to find a way to bridge that gap and be a very good communicator. Be a very good communicator to separate the emotion of the business to the us versus them. Right now in the business, we're not capturing this. Here's the solution, what we need to do. In regards to making that solution, here's how it's going to affect you. Like, here's why we need to charge out to the customers. Here's why these things. If you have those facts, it will help you create more clarity in the direction or decisions that you made as an owner. If you just loft it or like leaf it on your team, and then you're sitting back and like complaining why your team's so like change resistant, they hold back, like like you're starting to become resentful of them. Like, you know, it's like they just don't understand. They don't understand, like, I can't afford this place. I'm not making as much money. Us, them, us, them. Like, it really comes down to just having a lot more clear communication of what the business actually needs. And that would be a good place to start.
Why do you think that this issue can't be solved by just raising the prices or raising the cost of extra bowls?
Well, I think specifically because raising your prices doesn't, like, sometimes, like, doesn't mean like you're capturing costs, right? Like revenue is not the same as operational expenses. So like if you raise the price, it's likely in a commissionable earning line. So yes, you're charging more, and maybe you brought in, you know, as a business, you brought in another $2,000 or $3,000 more a month, but you paid commissions on that. And then on top of the commissions, then you have like the supply. So like, what problem am I solving? If I'm trying to capture my cost of goods, make sure things are being paid for, like, why does that have to, you know, be attached to like like what, like, why don't I have a clear conversation to the stylist and say, we need to do this. Here's how we're going to be able to ensure that these products are being paid for. Break it down. Like it's like, you're not lying, like hiding behind the mask, like you're taking, like show the numbers. Like you're not sitting in a bank of, you know, cash, like sitting on this, like making millions of dollars. Like you're lucky if you're making, 4%, if that, at the end of the year. And 4%, like on $1 million business, $40,000. 40,000. Like, show that the salon is not making as much as you think it is. I'm not like taking home $250,000 here. Like, even though we hit $1 million in sales, like I'm not making $250,000, just so you know.
I always assumed you were making $1 million.
Well, I thought I was making more than that, but not at that time.
And I think that's interesting. I think that without that knowledge and without being able to see those costs, the assumption is you're the rich salon owner. And you pay. This is the cost of you doing business is to cover all these expenses. You should pay for them. You're probably making more than me as the stylist, which is often not the case. Often salon owners are just taking home what they make behind the chair. They're not actually paying themselves for running the business. And so I think, too, this ties into a bit of why a lot of times the traditional model fails, which is extra bowls not being ran through, or emotional discounting, or things like that. That's a lot of the reason, I think, and I hear, from why the model doesn't work. You know, the current model doesn't work. You know, yeah, if you follow it to a T and you're charging $40 for an extra bowl, sure, you might be good, but if that's not happening, then it's that easy to go into the negative on a service.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I mean, fundamentally, when we look at like the evolution process of salon ownership, like you work for a salon on commission, you get really pissed off because they're taking half your money. Then you go and start your own business, and then you like all the like, we don't have service charges, we can have all this stuff, and then you realize like a couple of years in, now you have to do that, and then you're like, oh shit, I should have had more respect for my salon owner when I worked there, and now I have to be the bad guy taking things back. Like this is gonna like song and dance over and over and over in the industry. So like what the industry needs now more than ever is transparency. Things are not being paid for. Your current model is not covering costs, and keeping these costs in and not having the transparent conversation and separating that out is the reason why salons usually fail, and leave you in, a lot of stress and a lot of like uncomfortable conversations with your staff. And so like, I think it's just important to do that. And the second phrase I would say too is like, never ever build a business off your prior frustrations. Period. You should always build a business off your experience and a proper model that you understand on how it produces a profit to that business. And so that is the lesson that we have for the entire industry, is that when I communicate with my teams and there's like pushback and all this stuff and like adding on a bill or adding on a Rapunzel, adding on an extra bowl, like you're relying on a lot of like assuming models or the honor system. And like, it's only going to take 2 or 3 times they're not honoring the system for you to start getting upset and frustrated and resentful for your team.
Yeah.
And then the first time you have that conversation with the 1 or 2 that's doing it, or, sitting them down and having that conversation, you're now creating even more us versus them. You're now even creating a more separation because now we're being punished for something versus like, let's have a conversation of transparency. Here's the business's expenses. Here's how we're going to cover those things. Here's what the time's worth. Here's what your value is. We'll negotiate over here. Like, you never have to have this conversation again. This model was needed more than ever in the last couple of years. And a lot of the reason why like these old models don't work anymore and these old conversations are just adding in these like patchwork ways of covering your costs is because we're in a trend-based business. And stylists are so individualized. And we've said this where it's like they just want to be their own self. They care about 2 things. They care about making money and they care about their time. Mm-hmm. If you give your team the power to feel ownership of those 2 functions, you will have them for a very long time. But the moment you punish them in either of those categories or feel like you control that, you will lose them. And not only will you lose them, but you're going to create a fast train where they're going to take everybody else with them. And that is the cycle that will consistently repeat itself.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was on a call today and she brought up a really interesting point. So service charges aren't something we hear as often. I would say I hear them rarely now when talking to salon owners about their financial model. Most are giving commission on the full service price, including extras, including color that was like used during the service before they switched to parts plus labor. And so, back in the day, and I know you did this at Capelli as well, is you take a service charge, you take a fixed dollar value or a percentage off the top before you give commission. And that used to be common practice because then at least you're recouping some amount to repurchase the color. But it's not really a common practice anymore. Some places it's even illegal. And I think, what she said to me on the call was interesting. She said, I don't know how as a salon, how as an industry we ever got talked out of doing that, of covering our costs, at least in some way. And I think the way it happened, my understanding from talking to salon owners is kind of like what you said. You're building a model out of frustration. So you work as a commissioned stylist for a salon and you hate the service charges. You feel like they're stealing from you. And so you open your own salon and you think, no service charges, high commission, going to be the best place to work ever. And then at the end of the day, you're making no money. And so, it's giving that, I think that's kind of how it came about is just, the pushback from the stylist. And it's about not having that transparency, not saying like, this is the actual cost. This is what I'm paying for. This is the color you're doing the service. This is what I have to repurchase in order for you to do your future services. And somebody has to pay for it. So, and this is the exact number. So giving those stylists that data and that transparency, showing them that I think is invaluable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, I think it's not a free bar and they have to be, you can have full access to all the product in the salon, full inventory. We're going to supply it. You don't have to pay for a dime. You keep doing the talent. You keep doing and providing like your own, your own patterns, your own way of building a clientele. We're going to service you by giving you access to any product. You just simply have to use a tool to track that cost to make sure that we replenish it, that it comes for the next time you want to use the product. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to like negotiating your price point, it's like you don't have any variable cost. You have fixed costs. Like now you know that you can start to negotiate a little bit more with that stylist and be able to, say it's like, how do we raise you from, 45% up to like 50? Like, how do we give you another 5%? Because now that I have your labor factored out that doesn't have the variable side, I now can confidently know that I can do that without like sacrificing any cash flow issues in the business. Mm-hmm. I will say another good point on this too is like there's 2 types of ways to run a business. You can either run a business purely off survival or thriving. Are you surviving or are you thriving? Most of salons are surviving. And so if you are in the surviving mindset, that's where all these mentalities came from. Service charge, fix this. They're like, it's impulsive, like, because think about how desperate you are when you're trying to survive. You will do anything just to cover that. So you're probably delivering the message poorly. You're like, we need to cover this right now. And you're doing whatever you can just to survive. Mm-hmm. And while you're trying to survive, your whole team thinks you're thriving. So like, this is the reality or the disconnection. It's like your team thinks you're thriving when you're actually surviving. So you need to try and flip those two things around. The business needs to thrive. And you need to teach those teammates on like how to cover those costs, how do you get them hungry to accomplish those goals and to build themselves within the business. And so I think that is like the common thing. And I think a lot of these tactics in the past to like cover these costs, again, on the conversation of surviving and thriving, the industry wants you to be in survival mode because brands and companies make a lot of money off youth surviving. Mm-hmm. Being impulsive, buying more, doing this, covering this thing, and not actually thinking. And if you're really thriving and you're like really in margin, really in budget, you're not buying as much. You're not doing, you're becoming more efficient as a business owner, more profitable as a business. Your cash staying in your business versus going to either your team or to really any type of manufacturer or brand that you're purchasing from. Mm-hmm. So gain the empowerment back, whether you're talking to your customers, your staff, brands that you're purchasing, like no matter what, like find the way to get yourself to thriving so that you can have stronger conversations. So like when you're dealing with pushback from like your staff or you're dealing pushback like in general, the easiest way to kind of deal with those types of conflicts is through proper transparency and information. Information is the easiest source to kind of go from to be able to like communicate exactly what you need to do in your business. Kind of say that stylists that push back aggressively, the next thing is like really trying to focus on, again, we talked about their perspective. So it's like really understand their perspective, but only give space one time to have that conversation. But the moment they cross the boundary and the moment that stylist is not aligned with who your business is and what the business needs, you must have a conversation on where they might need to go next. Because that one person or the one or two people in your business that's holding your business back from really being profitable and doing that is going to ruin your mental health. It's going to really hurt the business in general. Lack of cash flow, lack of confidence, lack of team. You're heading towards a really horrible path. And sometimes I think you're getting trapped in, I need this person. This person brings in most of the revenue, or they bring in a lot, but they're actually costing you probably a lot by not making change in your business that you need.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to touch quickly on emotional pricing? And because I think a lot of that comes, a lot of this episode too is kind of how that pricing structure fails. And we're talking about the most creative, wonderful industry, just empathetic people. And then you have to, at the end of the service, give somebody a bill for your worth. And it's an easy way to, you just want a discount, or maybe it doesn't look exactly like their inspo pick. And so you panic and you discount, or you think maybe if you discount, they won't leave like a 3-star review or say anything bad or call and complain or want it fixed. And so you just want to kind of panic and discount. How do you think, how does giving like the cost and showing that cost tie into reducing that desire to emotionally discount?
I mean, yeah, I think that again, having transparency to like what it costs versus your time allows you to really start to see what you're throwing away. Like what are you actually doing? And anything tangible that you can measure, you can manage. And so when it comes to, again, emotionally discounting, like if you're not like tracking it, watching it, you're going to feel it. You're probably going to go through the roller coaster there. So the first step is to start by tracking. Like that first step is like starting to understand on a metric side, on a data side, how much is my emotions costing me? And, is that really aligned with where I'm going in my business or, me as a stylist? Like, am I just giving that away, and why? Really start to tap into that, I think, is really important. And I think like it's so easy to emotionally discount because we feel greatly to the customers that are in our chairs every day. And so what's the most important thing, especially like as a salon owner with a team that's learning how to do the checkout process and doing that, is to build their confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Pricing's what you pay, value is what you get. And so in order to really project value and to stand behind it, you need confidence. So the number one thing you need is confidence. You need confidence as a salon owner. You need confidence as a stylist to communicate exactly why you're pricing the way you are and why the cost is what it is. And the more you lean into that, the more you'll build, a whole lot of success for you as you lean into that.
And imagine the confidence you get by saying like, hey, the color cost is what it is today because this is your exact formula. I put it through an app. This is customized to exactly what we used on your head today. This will save the formula right here for you. And this is your color cost. It's just for you. It's just exactly what we used today. So I think it's cool. I think it creates kind of that custom package for the client. But I also think that your stylist, you're giving them data. You're not saying, oh yeah, that's $50 in color flat, and just kind of,
or the like extra bowl. There was an extra bowl fee, or they look at the like, why was I charging an extra fee? Like it creates that like, ooh,
yeah,
versus like you just said, where it's like, hey, yeah, our salon, we are a parts and labor business. We separate the cost it is for the ingredients, the products used in your formulation today, and then their time. Mm-hmm. So I charge $100 an hour. We took 2 hours. It's $200, and I used $26 worth of products. So it's $226 today. Mm-hmm. Like every single customer is used to this model. Mm-hmm. Like if they go and get work done on their vehicles or their house, like they understand the difference of parts and labor. It is so much easier and clearer than giving them just a menu and being like, starts at 100.
That's terrible.
And then now there's an extra bowl. Now there's an extra this. Like that is like, you do not, like that doesn't create clarity, and that doesn't create like transparency to the consumer too. Also, you're setting up your staff to have like uncomfortable conversation when they get challenged. Mm-hmm. When they get challenged at checkout, you better hope you have some type of tracking information to be able to say that extra bowl is not just $25. We just charge, well, it's just cause it's, mm-hmm. Well, we use a software called Salon Scale that tracked that your product was $26. I used 2 hours of time, so it was $226.
Would you run into that when your stylists were checking out clients before and they challenged the bill? Would they take some off, or would they, like, if you're just charging like a flat extra fee, so before Salon Scale, before parts plus labor, would they panic a discount, or did you find they stood behind it?
I think there's like 3 layers to this. Like as a stylist, a lot of times if I knew someone was pushing back, we'll just take that off today. Mm-hmm. Like I would just take off the add-on bowl. Didn't care about the salon owner. I didn't want to deal with like a customer that was mad at me or have conflict. Yeah. And I wanted them to come back. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't on my wallet.
Is that problem for Alicia?
Right. But then I went into like the next week of like being reprimanded in like a group, like the next week where it's like, where are all these bowls and covering costs? I was like, okay, we need to figure that out. But then as a salon owner, I mean, like, I think like a lot of my team, like they would charge the odd time. A lot of times they would make, like I would catch sometimes where they like reduced it or took it off or did that. And then you'd have to have a conversation. It's like, well, who's going to pay for this now? Like it's already gone. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I think a lot of stylists, when checking out a customer, it's like, if you at all get faced with that, the easiest thing you can do is like try and find some way to make them happy instantly versus having the confidence to just communicate that's what the price is, and go from there. And then I will back this up by saying a lot of the conflicts you'll have at checkout could be like 99% of them could be solved by having proper consultations and quoting properly. So like, don't get yourself into like a $3,000 job when they only are expecting to pay $300 for it. Mm-hmm. So it's like really understand, how do you understand that? Well, using software, understanding what it costs to do certain types of services, and then understanding your time. Again, from a stylist lens, parts and labor and having this type of methodology, it allows them to pattern match more. Okay, to do that service, it'd probably take me a couple hours, and this is roughly around how much it would use in product. Like, I'm now empowered. I have the right tools to help, influence, how I quote, so that when we get to checkout, we're not looking at sticker shock. Like, we have a lot more clearer conversation.
And question. So when you would have those conversations with the stylist, like if you caught them and they didn't add on extra balls, I guess two parts. Next time that client came in, if they got the same service and used about this, like the exact, like if I came in for a balayage and then 4 months later came in for another balayage and it was $40 more, like, do you keep the same price, or do you say, well, last time, we didn't add on those extra bowls? Does that happen? Or do you just collectively agree, okay, that's their price? And second part is, what would those stylists say when you said that to them? Why would they say that they did it? Would you empathize with that at all as a salon owner, or would you be a hard ass?
Well, step one, don't get resentful. Don't get mean. The first place for a leader is to educate. So if in the event you caught someone not charging for the bowl, you educate them. Okay, so like you just gave away that bowl of color. That's going to cost the salon $8. If you did that like a couple times a week, that's going to add up to this. So like our business simply can't afford to give away like $150 of color. So like we need to make sure that's covered. Mm-hmm. So the next time your client comes in, what I would say, like the next time this is going to happen and you feel like you need to take it off, step one, come and talk to me first before you take anything off, so that we can see if we can resolve it without discounting that bowl. Or if you did, simply say to the customers, like, look, for this appointment, I'm sorry I wasn't clear to you on how much it was. We're going to go ahead and take that extra bowl off today. However, the next time you come in, just know there's probably going to be another $30 for your next service. Mm-hmm. Like, educate your team and teach them confidence on how to communicate the pricing within the business. And the more you kind of do those things, and then there's another part to making it stick. Behaviors need to be reinforced. So these are great things to bring up in staff meetings, to be like, hey, I just want to acknowledge, like, so-and-so had this issue. They addressed it. They approached it this way. And now their client came back and started paying the price that was supposed to. So I just wanted like everyone know like the good behavior that was happening, like reward that in front of everyone, to keep encouraging and reinforcing the good behavior. And the team effort to ensuring that costs are being covered. I think that's really important. But like, if you are taking it as a weapon and you're going to like attack a stylist, or like you're going to be like, you're mad and you want to be forceful, you will never get impact that way. Like you're going to create a lot of more resentment. Like you're going to get a lot of pushback, and that stylist is going to be more in fear versus empowered. Mm-hmm. So again, you're creating more change resistant in your business versus, someone who's efficient and that wants to help contribute to the success of your business.
Yeah. No, I think that makes complete sense. And again, I think, honestly, I can't say enough about just empowering them with the data. And, I can't imagine the confidence that would come with pulling up an app, seeing their exact formula. They could even take a picture. Here, this is your head right here. See your head? This is $26. And having that, and it feels luxury. Like it feels like this is your formula. This is exactly what we did today. This is your history. This is your before and after, and this is the price. And I will always have this to reference for next time.
Always. And I think it's important to know that, like, as a business owner, you started somewhere, and it's very, very likely your staff and your stylists, they're going to run their own businesses one day too. And so be the change that the industry needs. Plant the seeds in the next generation, and be the person that empowered and helped guided them to like financial literacy in the business, so they never had to walk the path that you probably have had to face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good spot to probably wrap this up on. That was great.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Parts and Labor Podcast.
We'll see you next time.